I have a problem. So welcome back to the channel. My name's Christian, and yeah, I have a serious book buying problem. It's been going on for a couple of years. My husband used to reel me in, but he's become a reader, and so he's absolutely no help. He ends up buying more books at the bookstore than I do most of the time. So yeah, I have bought 12 books in the last, I say, 2 weeks. Like, these 12 books that I'm gonna kind of show you guys and talk about a little bit were bought within 2 like trips to the bookstore. And so yeah, you can kind of tell that I have an issue. Some of them are from used bookstores. Unfortunately, some of them were not. So we're just gonna, keep my addiction quiet. So yeah, so I hope everyone is doing well, staying safe, staying cool, especially if you're in Texas. Apparently the state has been moved permanently to the surface of the freaking sun because it's been hot as hell here lately. But hey, it's July in Texas, so what are you gonna do? So let's get into my July book haul. Now, this stack of books is probably not going to get read in July, partly because as a teacher, I am starting to kind of go back unofficially to start planning and stuff. So I'm going to be working most days on that. But of course, I don't necessarily have to. So I'm going to try and work on that. But I'm also getting my master's. And so I'm having to actually do schoolwork. And this law class is going to kick my ass. So hopefully I will get to some of these. If not, oh well, I'll eventually get to them. So they're kind of a smattering of different genres, different, I guess, YA adult. And so we'll kind of get into it. The first one is Yes, No, Maybe So. So this one is a YA kind of romance, so to speak. So there are 2 characters that we're going to be following, Jamie and Maya. Jamie, I can kind of see from this back picture that he has like the little yarmulke. I'm guessing he is Jewish and she is Muslim. And so they are basically put together to canvass for a political campaign in their neighborhood. And so he's super awkward. She is kind of like, ew, what's going on here? But of course, they fall in love, that kind of thing. So this author, Aisha Saeed, is one of the authors that I read in Hope Nation, and I really liked her essay. I didn't even realize it when I first bought that book that she was in Hope Nation. So, and of course it's a signed first copy, so I got both of their signatures. I was not there when they signed it, but Half Price Books in San Antonio usually has a series of signed copies that you can purchase. So yeah. The next one that I have is The Nickel Boys, and this one I had on my Goodreads like months ago, probably years ago, and it really caught my attention just because that it's based off of a real story of a reform school that kind of lasted for like over 100 years, and it kind of messed with a lot of kids at that time. It follows Elwood Curtis and Turner, who are both sent to this school for delinquents, and they start realizing that it's not what it seems. So this one was actually recommended by a couple of different book clubs for African American authors and things like that, and so I figured I'd give this one a try. There's another teacher who does Project Lit, and he posted on Twitter about reading this one, so I thought that would be a good one. So the next 3 I actually found all at Half Price Books in San Marcos. I've read one book from this author, and I actually heard about the author from another booktuber, Murphy Napier, who read a couple of his books, and I really liked her review of it, and she seemed to really, really enjoy his stuff. And so the first one, my sister had actually gotten this book at one of the Half Price Books as well. Like, Half Price Books is my candy store. So this one is My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry. So it follows Elsa, who is 7 years old, and she is very different. And her best friend is her grandmother, who's crazy. And I like the way that they describe her on the back. Her grandmother is 77 years old and crazy, as in stand on the balcony firing paintball guns at strangers crazy. And so her grandmother ends up dying, and she leaves Elsa a series of letters to people that she's wronged. And so she kind of goes on this adventure to deliver these letters. And she starts kind of understanding how being different is not something that needs to be kind of hidden. And so my sister, when she read this, said that Elsa reminded me of her, or reminded her of me, and the grandmother reminded her of herself, which I think is pretty interesting. I read the first couple of pages and I was like, you are spot on. So I'm really looking forward to reading that one. This other one, Brit Murray Was Here. I haven't heard of this one, but basically it's about this reclusive, busybody woman who kind of starts to begin to understand how she spent her life making choices for the sake of others, and she has to kind of come to terms with that. So I figure I'd give this one a try. I like Friedrich Bachmann's writing. He's Swedish. And so all of his books, I believe, are translated, and it's just pretty interesting the way that he writes. I'd read one of his other books, Beartown, this year, and I absolutely loved it. Like, it's not necessarily one of my favorite genres to read, but it was so good. So this last one is actually a continuation of Beartown, Us Against You. And so it takes place in Beartown. And they are a hockey town. Everything deals with the hockey team, and in this one, they've always been able to, the town's always been able to take pride in their rival, or their rivalry between Hed. Again, they're Swedish towns and stuff like that. So bringing the team together, however, proves to be a challenge as old bonds are broken, new ones are formed, and the bitterness between the adversaries threatens to turn into violence. So I don't want to give too much away about Beartown, but if you have not read it, you totally should. It's such a good book. It's super good. I figured I'd pick this one up just because it's a continuation. Probably the same characters that I really liked in the first one. So, yeah. The next one, this one I picked up solely because it's on my district's summer reading list for seniors for advanced placement courses. And this one is a historical fiction that follows Hazel, James, Aubrey, and Colette between World War I and World War II. But the stories are told by Aphrodite. And she's having to spin the tale or face judgment on Mount Olympus. And so she has to tell these stories. I can't remember exactly why she has to tell these stories. It has something to do with love and all that stuff. So I'm a sucker for historical fiction, so I have heard really good things about this. It's been on other people's read lists, and so we'll see how that one goes. And it's a pretty lengthy one, but we'll see. If anyone knows me personally, I absolutely love Little Mermaid. That is my favorite Disney character. I know all the songs, everything. I even have a mermaid tattoo. It's not an Ariel, but it's a mermaid tattoo. She has smoking boobs. But this one, I remember seeing somehow through either Amazon or Goodreads or something. I don't know. I find books in the strangest places. So this one kind of is a retelling of The Little Mermaid. So instead of Ariel, or in this case, Lyra, wanting to be human to, you know, to find her true love and all that stuff, Lyra is siren royalty, and she is the most deadly siren. She has the hearts of 17 princes in her collection. So instead of, you know, dingle hoppers, she has, you know, dead princes. And so she is punished by the Sea Queen and transformed into the one thing that she hates most of all, human. And so she has to kill the prince and get his heart before the winter solstice, or she stays human. But then you have the prince, Elian, who is wanting to hunt down sirens and figure out how to defeat them all. So it's kind of the exact antithesis of Little Mermaid, because neither of them like each other. They absolutely hate each other. So I have a feeling it's going to, I anticipate it's going to be like the hate to love trope, but we'll see. So I'm really looking forward to that one. The next one is an adult romance that I remember someone bringing up on one of the BookTube channels that I read. I want to say it was either Francina Simone or someone. Anyway, so this one is Real Men Knit, and it's basically a romance about this guy named Jesse who wants to save his adopted mother's knitting store. She's passed away, and his 3 other brothers want to sell the store. He wants to keep it, and he enlists the help of Carrie Fuller, who has had a major crush on him since childhood, and you know, they hopefully fall in love. I just want, you know, cheesy romance. I am a sucker for just cutesy, like girly squealing inducing romance, so hopefully that's what this is. So yeah. On to some nonfiction. So I recently read Dreamland Burning. I do not remember the author, but Dreamland Burning followed 2 characters that were separated by time. So you have William, who is living in the 1920s, and then you have Rowan, who is living in present day. And they both live in Tulsa. The story centers around the race riots in Tulsa in the 1920s. And a lot of people have started, because of the Black Lives Matter movement, a lot of people have started to kind of understand and start hearing about the Tulsa riots, because, you know, it was never really taught in schools. So this one was actually recommended by one of the teachers that I was reading Dreamland Burning with, and it's called The Killers of the Flower Moon, and it talks about the Osage murders and the birth of the FBI. So it kind of goes into, in the 1920s, the richest people per capita in the world were members of the Osage Nation in Oklahoma. So the connection between those is, in Dreamland Burning, William's mother is full-blood Osage Indian, and so they brought this one up just because it connects to that. So I really am interested to see kind of what happened to that tribe, and especially with what's going on in Oklahoma now, with basically the Supreme Court ruling that half of Oklahoma is now going back to Muskogee. So be interesting to see kind of a different perspective. So the next one, if I'm a sucker for Little Mermaid, I'm a sucker for a really pretty cover. So this one, I think I came across on Goodreads. This one is a futuristic, it's a sci-fi book. It follows Andra, who went into cryo sleep, and she was only supposed to be asleep for 100 years. Instead, something happened, and she was asleep for 1,000 years. And when she wakes up, everyone keeps calling her goddess. And so she realizes that her family, everyone she knew, is long dead, and she's nothing really special. She's not a goddess, but there is a guy named Zaid who is an exiled prince who has basically created the idea of her being a goddess. And so they're having to kind of figure out what went wrong and all this other stuff. So I thought it would be an interesting kind of sci-fi. I'm not really too much into sci-fi. I'd rather go for like fantasy, but we'll see how this one goes. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of that one movie with not Chris Pine, one of the Chris's, Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt and God, my brain is blanking right now. Jennifer Lawrence. Can't remember the name of the movie though, but that's kind of what it reminds me of. Next one is Stamped by Jason Reynolds and Ibram Kendi, and this one is the young adult version of Kendi's book Stamped from the Beginning. And so I'm interested to kind of read this one, partly because it's on the Project Lit book club list. And as a English teacher, I'm a chapter leader for my school, and this is one of the books that the kids could pull from. So I'm interested to see kind of what this book has, what this can teach me, so to speak, about things that maybe I'm a little bit more ignorant about. I'm tempted to get both copies because I want to see some differences, like what changed about the ideas in it, because there's been kind of a uptick in books that are being translated for YA readers. So like this one, you have Trevor Noah's memoir that was posted as a young adult version. There's one called Far from the Tree that was translated to YA. Now I started reading that one, and I started reading that one from the original author, and that one I could see getting put into a YA because it was pretty dense. Like I didn't even finish it. I need to go back and reread it, but I bought the YA version of it as well. So I'll be interested to kind of see what is either left out or not dumbed down, because I don't think Jason Reynolds would write anything that's dumbed down for kids, but just seeing the differences and similarities between the two books. So we'll see. The next one, again, beautiful cover. That's what got me into this one. It's very similar to like Wilder Girls in just the really pretty cover. So Agnes at the End of the World is kind of like a culty sci-fi fantasy. So it follows Agnes, who loves the her Red Creek home. So she finds out that, or she realizes that Red Creek is actually a cult. So she has to kind of try and get her brother out of Red Creek, but she realizes that there could be more danger outside because of course there's a pandemic, the deadly pandemic outside, and so she has to figure out, what does she believe, because she's been made to think like everything's a sin. So it'll be interesting because it says this feminist, voice-driven, and genre-defying novel is a breathtaking story of survival and faith, perfect for the fans of The Handmaid's Tales and Wilder Girls. So we will see about that one. And the last one, again, cover, come on, like, it's so pretty. And so this one is about Amora. And she is the princess, heir to the throne, and she has spent her life training to be the High Animancer, the Master of Souls. And so she has to secure her place as heir to the throne and prove her mastery of the monarchy's dangerous soul magic. So she has to go through that. She has to prove herself. And it looks like there's going to be a hot pirate named Bastian So we'll see how that one goes. I think this one's gonna just be a fun little romp through, and we'll see where it takes me. So that is my July book haul. Again, I probably will not get to all of those books in July. I probably won't even get to those in August. I'd rather buy more books than I will ever read. And I use the excuse of I buy the books for my students, which is true to a certain extent. Like I want to be able to provide, books to my students when they come in. So yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So if you haven't subscribed, please do comment down below if you have either read any of these books. Don't spoil it for me, but if you read any of these books, or you want to read these with me, or anything like that, just drop a comment below. And hope you guys stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you guys later.